Hello, welcome to my show tonight. Sorry guys, we are a few minutes late. It's 100% my fault. I was very, very busy today. I've been going since about 6:30 this morning. I have not had a break, and I had to run and pick up my medications before the show. So it took me a little bit extra time, and but I am here. I'm happy to be here, and I have a very important topic to talk about. So, oh, by the way, before we move on, my new hoodie came in today. You too can get this hoodie at our website, and Joel will post that in the comments. Yes, isn't this awesome? And I'll tell you, it's thick, it's warm in my freezing cold studio, and I am in love. It's got a nice big hood that I could put over my mop of hair. I'm pretty excited about this. So, yeah. This is really, really good quality, and I'm very happy about it. Anyways, so I've talked a lot about, yes, Sarah, you should get one. It's really cozy. I talked a lot about Darrel Brooks, and I could not leave you guys. Joel can answer that for you, Sapot. I don't know off the top of my head. I couldn't leave you guys with it hanging there. The last time we talked, we were talking about what was going on and his behavior in court and all that crazy stuff. So yesterday, he was sentenced finally. So we're going to talk about it. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of things that happened. But I'm very happy with the decision that this judge has made. Now, I know it's been hard because there's been, even myself, I've said, I love this judge. She's very, very smart. She's very patient. Hi, Jack Allen or Julie. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sapot. Hi, everybody. It's great to see you. Thank you for being here. I know I've said many times I love this judge because I feel like lot of the decisions she's making are to avoid the him having a chance to appeal. A lot of the decisions she's making are to make sure that there is no shot at him putting the families through this again. Yes, she was very fair, okay, but she also gave Darrel Brooks a lot of leeway throughout this trial, and I know it's hard, and sometimes you're like, what the hell is this lady doing? Like, there's got to be a reason for it. Well, after the sentencing, we were assured the reason for it because she explained a lot, and it was really nice to see Judge Doro be able to say, you know what? The jury's not here anymore. This is a sentencing phase. The jury's not here anymore. I don't have to give him as much leeway. Sit down, shut up, or go to the other courtroom because now is my time. Now is the victim's time. You had your time. And it was really nice to see her take charge and say, you know what? At this point, I'm not having to worry about the appeals process. All I'm worried about is making sure these victims get justice from your evil ass. Now, she didn't say that, but that's what I imagine her thinking, okay? Yeah, Saint Jennifer Darrell. She is, I mean, honestly, I wish all judges were like her. I'm very impressed with the way she handled this case. I mean, she gave Darrel Brooks every opportunity to defend himself. She even gave him credit when he asked good questions. But she also knew that she had to dot her I's and cross her T's and make sure everything was in order. And I can't even imagine how stressful that was. On top of having such a disruptive person, and not being able to, I guess, talk to them the way you normally would. Having such a disruptive and disrespectful and evil person, she really is classy. She held her ground. She did her job. She did it fairly, regardless of what he wants to claim. And it ended very well. So I'm going to go through this a little bit by little bit. He was so disruptive, trying to control the whole thing. Yes, he was, Sarah. Honestly, I don't even know how someone can create that much trauma, that much death, that much injury, that much hardship, and not care. And like, I know you can never say you can see inside somebody. Like, you don't always know what they're thinking, but his actions were so disgusting. I'll tell you. Okay, so Tuesday, all day, was, I believe they said 45 victim testimonies. And these are like, these are them giving their impact statements, how this has impacted them. He needs Jesus in his life. Yes, Sarah. And that's something I'm going to talk about too, because he liked to use the Bible and his faith as a prop, and it pissed me off. But so we had 45 impact statements. Okay. That is huge. Huge. That amount of people. And the only reason there weren't more is because some couldn't do it. They couldn't emotionally handle it. They couldn't get in front of this guy. They couldn't handle it. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally understandable. But to have 45 impact statements, and some of them were little kids, because they didn't allow kids to testify during the trial phase. And when they gave their impact statements during the sentencing phase, they put the camera on like the judge or Darrel Brooks, which was great because they weren't going to show these poor kids on camera. Yes, justice was served, and we're going to talk about that. So Tuesday, they had impact statements. Some of the ones that stood out to me was Jackson Sparks' mom. So Jackson Sparks is the 8-year-old out of the 6 victims that died or were killed by Darrel Brooks. Jackson Sparks was the youngest. He was 8 years old. This mom told the story about how her son Jackson, who's 8, and her son Tucker, who's 12, were both severely injured They both were in the ICU. They both had brain damage. They both had traumatic brain injury, all these insane injuries. It's actually a miracle that Tucker, the 12-year-old, survived. Jackson did not. And she goes on to tell the story about how she had to tell Tucker, who's the older brother, the 12-year-old, she had to tell him, because he asked the next day, like a day later or something, he goes, how's Jackson? Is he as bad as I am, or is he better than I am? And she had to tell him that the injuries were just too much for his little body to handle. And the guilt that his poor brother feels, he said, the mom goes on to say that Tucker had said, I feel like I should have done more as his big brother, and maybe it should have been me instead. How awful is that? Like, you lose not only one of your children, but your other child has survivor's guilt, PTSD, physical and emotional damage that he's going to have to live with the rest of his life. It's just heartbreaking. There's another one that really hit me. So hold on. I want to make sure I get this right, the name here. I have that down on my notes. So, Virginia Sorensen, or Ginny is what she went by, Ginny Sorensen. She was one of the dancing grannies. She's one of the victims that died. And her kids, her adult children, and one of her grandchildren got up and spoke and gave impact statements. And what I really loved was, okay, so I got to give you a little background. So throughout these victim statements, you have Darrel Brooks. Luckily, he was shackled this time because they didn't have a jury to put on a show for her. So he was shackled. And as these victim statements are being told, they're back behind him and he's up here. He's rolling his eyes. He's shaking his head. He's laughing at some points. He's going like this after every one, like with his hands cuffed. He's clapping his chest like he's mock clapping for them. He is so freaking disrespectful. So when Virginia or Jenny Sorensen's kids start talking, her first adult son to talk got up there and just laid into him and said, you are so evil and disrespectful, and I can't believe you would act this way, and you took our mom from us, and she was so important to everyone. She would have taken care of you, dude. Like, you are so evil. And then what really struck me with his impact statement was at the end of his impact statement, he went like that to Darrel Brooks to say, we all see your behavior. We see how disrespectful to us you are, and F you, basically. Then her other son got up there and he really laid into her. I encourage you guys to look up the impact statements and check them out. They are heart-wrenching. They are so impactful. They made such an impact on me, on the judge. They were very important for this sentencing phase because you hear all the carnage. You hear that 6 people were murdered, 61 were physically injured, but then you've got hundreds that were emotionally injured or impacted in some way. And to hear that, it's awful, right? But when you've got them and their families and the people that are important to them speaking about the actual impact that it's had on them in their lives, it is crushing. These are the victims that passed away. There's Tamara Durand. There's Jackson Sparks is right there in the middle. That's William Hospital at the top right. I'm not sure which order these ladies are, but you've got Jane Coolidge, Virginia Sorensen, and Leanna Owen. So Leanna Owen's family talked as well, and they were so upset, and they just made some really amazing points. Micah said, I don't know who allowed this individual to represent himself. He made a mockery of the courts, and it just went away. He did make a mockery of the court, and what's hard is that constitutionally he had a right to do so. And the reason that the judge gave him so much leeway was because She wanted to make sure he had no chance to appeal. So she gave him more opportunities than she would have, say, a lawyer. And it sucks because he put the families through so much. He put them through so much more heartbreak and terror, and I will talk about that a little bit. But at least we got to the point we needed to, and I'm very grateful to that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the victims when we come back, but first I'm going to give you I'm going to tell you what the sentencing was. So the sentencing was, the judge got up there and she was incredible. So she talked for about 45 minutes before she even started giving out the sentencing. And she said some things. There's a picture of her that I have that's one of the quotes she made. And I wanted to make sure to say that before I tell you the sentencing. So hopefully Joel can pull that one up. Hi, Jeremy. Not that one, but that's a good one too. I've presided over dozens and dozens of cases that have gone to trial. To say this has been the most challenging of my career would be an understatement. That is something she said a couple weeks ago when he was when he was found guilty. But there's another one up there. Here it is. She said this yesterday. There are many, many times good people do bad things. But there are times when evil people do bad things. There is no medication or treatment for a heart that is bent on evil. Child trauma, bipolar, indifference, physical abuse of a child, or childhood trauma did not cause Darrel Brooks to commit the acts for which he will be sentenced here today. Some people, unfortunately, choose a path of evil, and I think, Mr. Brooks, that you are one of those such persons. I mean, exactly. Unbelievably, perfectly said, and she said a lot more. Now, what you need to know is the reason she had to talk about for 20 minutes about mental health and the fact that he was evaluated by 4 different professionals in several different evaluations, because at first he tried to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Well, these 4 different professionals all found that he was not insane. He doesn't even have a diagnosed mental illness. He has some defects, like personality defects, but he doesn't have a diagnosed mental illness. The reason she had to talk about that for so long is because, unbelievably, his mother, Darrel Brooks's mother, and his grandmother, and his friend, so that's 3 people, even though he claimed he had 20, that's 3 people that spoke on his behalf. There's his mom. Dawn Woods is his mother. All 3 of them claimed that what we're seeing in court is not the real Darrel Brooks, that he's actually really sweet, and that this is all mental illness, and he doesn't deserve to go to jail. He should go to a mental institution and get help and then be released. That's exactly what his mother, his grandmother, and his friend, and I got pictures of all 3 of them, said about Darrel Brooks. That's his friend, Michelle Allworth. Unbelievable. And to me, what was really striking was his grandmother right there, Mary Edwards, claims to be a minister. And she had the audacity to not only claim that her grandson is not guilty because it's his mental illness. She did say she hopes that he asks for forgiveness. But then she turned to all the victims and said, if you're harboring unforgiveness, that's your problem. That's on you, and that's something you need to deal with. That's not Darrel Brooks's fault. And if you're harboring unforgiveness and you want revenge and you're angry, and that's the reason why you're trying to put him in jail, is because you want revenge, and that's the wrong thing to do. Oh my God. I could not believe it. And not a single one of them said anything close to a real apology or anything. And Darrel Brooks never said anything about apology. When he got a chance to speak, it was 2 hours plus of him rambling on about mental health and that he deserves to get treatment and that this is going to ruin his life, and woe is me, and my poor family, and my poor me, and blah, blah, blah. Not 1 ounce of acknowledgement of what he has done. Not 1 ounce of anything except all about himself. And it was just so unbelievable. It's unbelievable what we witnessed there. So anyways, get back to the sentencing, Brandy. So when the judge came out, she spoke, like I said, for 45 minutes detailing what she believes. She also highlighted some of the impact statements that made an impact on her personally. She was tearful. She was emotional because she had been holding this in for weeks. Sarah said, F that. Micah said, white padded room, definitely release, never ever. That way of thinking had to start somewhere. Yeah, that's right. So she talks about these impact statements. She actually said Tucker Sparks, Jackson Sparks' older brother. She said, you're a hero. You are an absolute hero. Because of you, justice is going to be served. And it just, oh my God, I broke out in tears. Okay. Unbelievable. And then she started the sentencing. And what I find really impactful and important about this, she could have easily just done it really quick. She could have laid out the sentencing and been done with it. But she gave a name to every sentence. So, for example, she, and it wasn't in this order, but she said for counts 1 through 6, he will serve, I am sentencing Darrel Brooks to life in prison without extended supervision, which means without the possibility of parole, for each count, to be served consecutively. And if you know what that means they're to be served back to back, not at the same time, back to back, meaning there's absolutely no chance of him having some sort of parole or having some sort of good behavior get him out, okay? And that's just the first 6 counts. There's 76 counts in this thing. And then she said, before she moved on, she said, for life in prison without extended parole or without extended supervision for Virginia Sorensen. Life in prison without extended supervision for Tamara Durand. Life in prison without extended supervision for Willem Hospital. Life in prison without extended supervision for Jane Coolidge. Life in prison without extended supervision for Leanna Owen. And life in prison without extended supervision for Jackson Sparks. And she did that. She gave a name to each sentence, and it was so impactful and so important. Those first 6 ones, they clapped after each one, and then she had to let them know, please, I totally understand, but we need to not do that for the next bit or we're never going to get out of here. And then she said for counts 7 through 67, those were the injured parties. So each count 6 or 7 through 67 had a name attached to it as well. I don't have all those names, and I'm not going to read all those names, but they had a name attached to them as well. And she says the maximum sentence for those charges, which is battery with a deadly weapon, was 12 and a half years plus 5 years extended supervision. So 17 and a half years each. So she literally went and said, for so-and-so, 17 and a half years. For so-and-so, 17 and a half years. And she did that for all 61 names for those counts. And then he got from counts 68 through 73, he received 25 years each. And then for counts 74 and 75, he got 6 years each. And then for count 76, he received 9 months. All of it consecutive. And I think if you calculate it out, I can't remember the number. Let me pull it up real quick. But the importance of what she did was, the importance of saying every name was to drill it in him. And she also said some other things. But before, I'll give you the number and I'll get you what she had said after sentencing or during sentencing, or her reasonings for the amount of sentencing when we come back. Check out this amazing company, Whitney Signs. They are incredible. Check them out. Okay, so as far as the years go, Joel, that's not correct. If you count all of the years, it is 1,229 years, 29 and a half years plus 6 life sentences. And I'm guessing 6 life sentences would be like 100 years. So that's another, so it's 1,829 and a half years that he was sentenced. Okay? It is about the victims, exactly. And I'm going to tell you guys a lot about these victims. I've got some information that I'm really excited to tell you guys. But I want to read a few things that were said that I can actually quote that I thought were very important. So she handed out these sentences, and she said afterwards, she says, "Frankly, you deserve it." That she said, "I know it's symbolic, but it needs to hold you accountable in a very real and tangible way." She means it's symbolic in the sense that nobody lives 1,800 years, but she needed to make sure that he knew that how bad it is of what he did, and I think it's great how she did that. And then she goes on to say, where is it? Sorry, guys, I have my notes here, but... Oh, also, his mother, I have a quote from his mother. She actually read the poem "I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings" by Maya Angelou, which I thought was very distasteful. I thought that was disgusting, and it was so wrong to do that in that moment. And she claims that that's her son. And then she says, "To the families who lost loved ones and those who suffered injuries, I know their pain." This is his mom. You wonder where he gets this from, okay? Unbelievable. And she said, "And I pray the Lord will continue to comfort and heal each of them." Notice that there was no acknowledgement or accountability in there at all. None. And then this is the one that I was talking about. So Mrs. Sparks, Jackson Sparks' mom, she said, "Do you know how," in her impact statement, she said, "Do you have any idea how gut-wrenching it is to explain to your 12-year-old son that his little brother isn't going to make it?" She said Jackson was violently ripped from their lives. Anyways, I wanted to tell you a little bit about these victims that I found was cool that I was able to find this. So I'm going to talk about the 6 victims that lost their life. Yeah, Joel, that's right. That's how I got to those numbers. And Cherry said general population done. I hope they put him in general pop because he won't make it a year. I guarantee it. Okay, so Jane Coolidge was a mother of 3 with 3 grandkids. She marched with Citizens Bank in 2021 Waukesha Christmas Parade. Her husband said she was one of the most wonderful women to ever walk the earth. The Dancing Grannies. So you've got Durand, Owen, Sorensen. Those 3 ladies were part of the Dancing Grannies, and then Willem Hospital was a supporting person for the Dancing Grannies. So 4 out of these 6 people that were killed were part of the Dancing Grannies group. When so Laura Thien, she was one of the Dancing Grannies that survived, and when she gave her statement, or when she was a witness, she said, "When I looked, all I saw were bodies in the street. It took me a couple of minutes to kind of get my head together because I couldn't believe what I was saying, or what I was seeing." Jackson Sparks, he's the one in the middle on the top with that cute little grin with no teeth. He was from Mukwonago. He died at the Children's Wisconsin Hospital, Children's Hospital, Wisconsin, on Tuesday, November 23rd. So it was 2 days after the attack he passed away. He had brain surgery the day of the attack, and an online fundraiser for the Sparks family said, but he needed a miracle to pull through. Jackson and his 12-year-old brother Tucker, who were injured in the attack, were baseball lovers. Jackson played for the Waukesha Blazers baseball team. Oh, Waukesha Blazers, too. I think Mr. Rogers, his last name was Rogers. He was the manager of the Blazers team, and he not only testified in court during the actual trial, but he also gave an impact statement, and he was so gracious and he was so kind, but he was also very firm and very clear about what the impact was to all of his kids, not just his family, but all of the kids in the baseball team. And what I found so sad and scary was he had 3 kids. He had to throw his 3-year-old out of the way. Then one of his kids was named Riley, like our daughter, and he couldn't find Riley for the longest time, and he was desperate to find Riley. And it's just, his story was so it was just so moving in that way, that very real way. Oh, I thought I had more information here. Okay, so what I found really, really interesting was how Darrel Brooks was able to be so disrespectful throughout this entire time. I think I have a few pictures of him and his okay. So this is one of the things he said. I want each and every victim in this incident, family members, those who lost loved ones, those who are still healing, I want you to know that no matter how you felt during this year, no matter how you felt yesterday, I want everyone to know, also the community of Waukesha, I want you to know, how many times do you say I want you to know, that not only am I sorry for what happened, I'm sorry that you could not see what's truly in my heart. Notice he says, I'm sorry for what happened. He acted this whole time like this was something that happened to him, not a crime that he committed. That you cannot see the remorse that I have, that you cannot listen to all the phone calls that I've made to my family, that you cannot hear all the prayers I've said in my cell, that you cannot count all the tears that I've dropped in this year. Look at all the I. Not once in that statement did he actually turn to the family members and the victims and say, I am so incredibly sorry that I committed this crime. And I hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. And I deserve whatever punishment is given to me. But no, he could not bring himself to say anything that sounded like any kind of acknowledgement of what he has done. And that to me is wild. It's just wild. I mean, he finally admitted on Tuesday when they started the sentencing phase that he's Darrel Brooks Jr. We all know that throughout the whole trial, he tried to pretend that he wasn't that guy. He doesn't know who Darrel Brooks Jr. is. Who's Darrel Brooks Jr.? But he finally admitted who he was. And by the way, another thing I found super weird and super interesting and manipulative as shit was he only shed tears when he was talking about how this has affected him or his family. That's the only time he ever shed tears. Also, Tuesday was the day that the victims were able to give their impact statements. So that day, he was in a mask again. Wednesday, see, there's him rolling his eyes at one of the many impact statements that happened that day, with his prop Bible right next to him. The next day, Wednesday, he was not masked. And that was the day that his family, his grandmother, his mother, and his one friend came to speak on his behalf. And then he took 2.5 hours of the floor to ramble on and on and on, to the point where the judge had to say, dude, we've been over this a million times. I don't need you to tell me anything but what you suggest my sentencing be and why. But he continued to go round and round in circles. Notice, see, there's him rolling his eyes again. During a child speaking, by the way. A child was speaking at that time. And he's rolling his eyes and shaking his head and laughing. Every single one of those victim impact statements, he did something. He either rolled his eyes, mocked them by clapping, laughed at them, shook his head, or pretended to pray. He could not handle it not being about his ass. It's unbelievable. Where was I going? Okay, so he was masked when the victims got to give their part and how this has affected them, but unmasked when it's his turn. This is the same pattern that he had during the trial. He refused to take his mask off throughout the whole prosecution's case, right? Keep that up for a minute. He took his mask off the day he started presenting the defense case. I would love to hear your guys' perspective on why that is. It's a very, very seriously manipulative tactic. And I want to know what you guys think before I tell you what I think. See this vehicle? This is his vehicle. This vehicle, the damage to it looks like he ran into a brick wall, right? That damage is done by human bodies, by the sheer force that he hit those people with. There was even a hat and a sweater and a scarf stuck into parts of the hood. Mike said they need to go medieval on his ass. Sherry said sadly there are people out there that just want to gaslight others and pretend we are the problem. They have no souls. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So when the judge was talking and giving out the sentence, before she gave out the sentence, I told you she had like 45 minutes to an hour of just talking about her perspective on everything, how she came to this point, what she used to decide the sentencing. And she discussed there was a phone call on November 11th, which is just a few days ago, that Brooks made from prison to Erica Patterson. Erica Patterson is the mother of one of his children. She's also the one that he has the sex offender charge for because he got her pregnant at 15 and he was a full-blown adult. He's also the one that has domestic battery against him from her. She's also the one that he ran over her leg and was arrested for that. He ran over her leg. He used his car as a weapon before on Erica Patterson, ran over her leg. And then the judge gave him $1,000 cash bond to free him on November 19th, 2021. This massacre happened November 21st, 2021, 2 days later. So Erica Patterson and Darrel Brooks had a phone call just a couple days ago, and the prison records them for the judge and for the prosecution and all that. And he was yelling at her and gaslighting her and telling her this entire thing was her fault. This entire thing was her fault because he couldn't get to her because he was angry with her. And so because he was angry with her and she didn't stop him, all those deaths are on her. That's a phone call he made just a couple days ago. And the judge was able to see that. And the judge said, I honestly believe that so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, so two of her friends that were there, saved Erica Patterson's life that day. If they weren't there, she would have been killed. And to then turn around and gaslight her and tell her that it's her fault for your actions, That's pure evil. Pure evil. Unbelievable. This is a very good example of an abusive person. Sometimes abuse is physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's both. But gaslighting is so incredibly manipulative. This woman has been abused for years by this man, and she's still speaking to him because she is so damaged by him, because he has messed with her brain so much. She genuinely believes what he is saying, that she is the one that's at fault. She's the bad guy. It's unbelievable. The amount of heartbreak and pressure she must feel is just immense. Something, I'm trying to read that comment there. Something sucking pond slime removed from society. Yeah, if the justice system was working properly, he would have been in jail cell that day. If the justice system was working properly, this would have never happened because he would have been in jail already. They wouldn't have allowed him out on $1,000 cash bond. Micah says, sounds like a Democrat mentality. Sorry, not sorry. Evil, evil. Yes, 1,000%. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the system is doing this more and more and more. We will be back. We started late, so we're gonna go late tonight. I have more to say, but let's check out this commercial. Hitch and Post Pizza, best pizza around. Check it out. Welcome back. Sorry, guys. I was looking for a certain quote that I was trying to find, but I'm having trouble with that. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why I think the judge did it the way she did it. I think part of it was so that, obviously we know she handled the trial in a very amazing way. And I found it very interesting because one of the victims, Tyler, can't remember his last name, but he's like a teenager. He suffered some major injuries, but he's alive. He's one of the counts that he received 17 and a half years for. And Tyler was saying, he said, Judge Doro, I owe you an apology because there's been a long time that I've been angry with you. And this is the first time I've had any chance to even approach you because the way the system works, none of the victims were able to talk to the judge until the impact statement. And he says, I now know, thanks to these wonderful people behind me, the prosecution, the victim help people, and everybody else, of why you did what you did and why certain rulings went a certain way and how much you were actually protecting us. And he said, I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for presiding over this case in such a classy and fair way, and also doing it in a way that we won't have to go through this again, that this is it. And I thought that was very insightful for a teenage boy to say, and many of them said very similar things about the judge. And like we've said, there's a reason for it. It's a shame, though, that in our system, she had to go that far. She had to allow that much leeway in order to protect the victims from having to relive this. They also had a, I can't remember her name, but the mom that was brought in by Darrel Brooks as a witness because he saw she was on the prosecution's witness list, but taken off. And he brought her, and how heartless that was, because the reason she was taken off was because all 4 of her kids were victims. All 4 of her kids were injured severely. And for that mom, it was heartbreaking. And to see her have to not only testify, but come back in her victim impact statement, she talked about heartless it was of him to know the reason that she wasn't, because that's all released to in discovery, to know the reason that she wasn't brought on the stand, and for him to force her to come back as a witness, to subpoena her and put her on that stand and make her relive that and go through all that stuff is just heartless. I honestly believe that this man was enjoying this trial. I honestly believe, we know he was stalling. I mean, clearly, even his statement yesterday was 2.5 hours long. Like, he was stalling, but he also was savoring every moment, listening to the harm that he caused. And to me, I don't even have a name for that kind of evil. I don't even know how to classify that. It's insanity, really. And what's sad is that he couldn't take responsibility. He couldn't say sorry. He couldn't even acknowledge that what he had done is wrong. All he could do was complain and whine about himself. And it's unbelievable to me. What I wanted to talk about too is the failure here. I'm really glad that justice was served in this case, and so excited. I mean, yesterday I was so happy I had to get on and tell you guys real quick that this is what we were talking about, because it's so important. I also wanted to touch on the fact that this family had to go through so much to get justice served. And why? Why is it that the system put them through so much? Why is it that the system protected Darrel Brooks for so long? Why is it that he was out free 2 days before doing this? And it's the same weapon. The same weapon, because he ran over Erica Patterson's leg, and then he ran into people. The judge said that the special circumstances, well, she didn't add 5 years to each life sentence because it was pointless. But she said, make no mistake, Mr. Brooks, you used that vehicle as a battering ram on these people, the same as someone would have used a firearm. And that to me was super impactful. Joel said Bubba will make him sorry. He would have found another way to do something. Absolutely. Now, I don't know the truth in this, but I did hear about something today. So I haven't had a chance to look into it. So don't take my word for it. Maybe do some research on it yourself. But there was a couple statements made on one of the posts today that I saw that said, on November 10th, 2021, which was 11 days before this massacre, it was stated that BLM was going to send people out to attack families, attack parades, attack anyone they could in retaliation for Kyle Rittenhouse getting free. Now, I don't know how valid that is. I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that's someone just trying to start another division. But I found that highly interesting that I hadn't heard anything about it until today. Also, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there was an incident that occurred today, and I am not sure. I'm not sure if it was. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. I'm not sure if it was related to this in some way. They know the guy wasn't drunk. He wasn't drunk, and they're not. I don't know if they've released the reason yet. But in California, a 22-year-old was found going down the wrong side of the road, and I'll read this to you. A video has emerged showing the moments before a vehicle plowed through a group of 75 recruits from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Academy during a training run, leaving a few of the 25 injured in critical condition. So what that's saying is there were 75 officer recruits running down the road, like a jog, like a training jog down the street. And this 22-year-old came around the corner and went the wrong way and plowed right into them, injuring 25, with a few of them in critical condition. The incident, described as very odd and horrific, happened in the city of Whittier earlier Wednesday, which was yesterday. So actually it happened the same day that Darrel Brooks was sentenced, but before he was sentenced. The sheriff said the recruit suffered injuries including head trauma, broken bones, loss of limb, while the driver, a 22-year-old who blew a 0.0 on a sobriety test, was detained. It happened so quickly that just the people that just saw it veer into them. They jumped out of the way, but the people behind had no chance because they never saw it. They didn't have the sufficient warning. As soon as the accident happened, the chaos that ensued, they said it looked like an airplane wreck. There were so many bodies scattered everywhere in different states of injuries. The class was in its 8th week of a 22-week training program, and the incident is under investigation by the California Highway Patrol. 25 recruits were injured, 5 were critically injured. Okay, why is this stuff happening? Why? I'm not sure correct me if I'm wrong, but this isn't something that I've heard of before. People just driving into pedestrians like that, big groups of pedestrians, until Darrel Brooks and now this. And he wasn't drunk. I'm really hoping we find out soon what the heck happened there. But honestly, what is going on with our world? What is happening, you guys? I had a lot to say. And I have a few more quotes from the judge, and then I'll let you guys go because we're already past time and all that. But I might post a few more things later. So the judge, it says the victims were 8 to 81, which is a crazy range. More than 60 people injured. Judge Doro said the seriousness of the offense can be summed up frankly in one word, and that is attack. And she made that very clear because he kept saying, this happened to us, this accident, this tragedy. No, this was an attack. This wasn't an accident. It didn't just happen to him. Judge Doro also said that Brooks used the vehicle as a battering ram and struck people over several blocks, hitting them as if they were nothing more than speed bumps. Darrell also said Brooks showed a complete and utter lack of remorse, barely apologizing and at times mocking victims with hand gestures or by rolling his eyes. The youngest person who died, 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, was struck with his older brother as they walked the parade with their baseball teammates. And that is an example of what happened to everyone that was injured. They were just enjoying a fun family parade, something that was the start of the Christmas season, something to celebrate family togetherness. And this monster, this evil piece of shit, plowed into them like they were nothing. It's just unbelievable to me that we had this kind of evil in our world. One more thing that Darrow said, and then I'll wrap up. She talks about, he spoke here today for 2 hours, yet I was looking for one sentence. One sentence. I'm sorry. That's it. Darrow said the images of the crash kept her up at night, and she repeatedly described the events as horrific. She said the only time we heard about brake lights was when Jane Coolidge was on that vehicle, and he braked so that he could get her off the top and run her over. That is exactly what shows how monstrous and how evil this man is. She also said, frankly, Mr. Brooks, No one is safe from you. This community can only be safe if you are behind bars for the rest of your life. So anyways, with that being said, we'll call it a night tonight. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend, an awesome Thanksgiving. I don't think we're doing a Thanksgiving show. I would think we're not. So I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving week. If you're local in the area, we're giving out Thanksgiving food boxes to the community to community members that have been nominated. I'd like to give a couple shout outs here real quick. A special shout out to Michelle Jackson, because she got the word out about all the amazing work that's being done with ECW and that the donations we need. The next shout out I'd like to give is a little personal. I have got a pretty incredible niece. Her name is Shaylee. My niece and my two nephews and my sister-in-law and brother-in-law had recently moved to Georgia. And Shaylee and my nephew Jackson, they both really, really enjoy wrestling and all these awesome things that I could never do. Anyways, my sister-in-law put up a GoFundMe for them because they're having trouble getting the funding for what they do, their wrestling, and all the fun things that they like to do with their sports. So if you get a chance, I will post it on here if anybody's interested in checking that out. I promised my sister-in-law I'd put that out for you. They're amazing. I miss them. One day, hopefully, they come visit. Georgia's a long ways away. But Shaylee, we're really proud of you. Jackson and Buddy, we're proud of you too. We miss you guys. And yeah, so thank you, Michelle Jackson. And Spot said those victims are going to have PTSD for the rest of their lives. Spot said, woot woot, go Michelle Jackson. Sarah said, yes, they do. Thank you. We miss you all. Miss you guys too. Yeah, those victims will never forget what happened, and it's going to affect them forever, and their family members and everybody that was affected by it. It touches hundreds, if not thousands of lives. Thank you guys for tonight. Again, have a great weekend. Have an awesome Thanksgiving. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night.
Good night. Goodbye, everybody.